Hello and welcome back to the Jerusalem Post. I'm your host, Tamar Uriel-Beeri, and today I'm joined by Russell Robinson. Russell is Chief Executive Officer of Jewish National Fund USA. Under his leadership, JNF USA has reached unparalleled new heights in the Jewish philanthropic world. Russell, thank you so much for joining us today.
Tamar, thank you for having me.
So why does Jewish National Fund USA support the Jewish Future Pledge?
I think that the question is that why wouldn't anybody? This is an opportunity by an individual who started an organization who doesn't take any money. It is about helping all of us get our constituencies, our donors, our partners to understand that if we work so hard on building what we have built as a foundation for Jewish life, isn't it worth that extra effort to talk to our children, our children's children, about participating in the same way we did today for tomorrow?
So you were speaking about children and such. What do you think the pledge does for young people specifically?
I think that the pledge starts at a family unit. And all of us have an assumption. We raise our children, we're assuming they're going to be good people. We're assuming they're going to take care of us. They're assuming a lot of things. And we're assuming that they're going to be part of the Jewish community, and our own estates are going to be part of that as well. The Jewish Future Pledge starts that conversation. It's not a legal conversation. It's an ethical conversation. By signing it yourself, first, have that conversation with your kids the day after, on Shabbat. Have that conversation the next holiday, on Passover, and say, you know, my spouse, my wife, my partner, we signed the Jewish Future Pledge. We want to make sure that 50% minimum of the amount of money that we are going to give away to charity upon our demise is going to go Jewishly. All of a sudden, in the family, I've heard this before. One family member said, wow, I'm glad you said that to me. I thought the university of was something you wanted to do with your money to be recognized upon your demise. And I'm glad you had this conversation because now I understand better. So it starts having the family conversation. For the Jewish Youth Pledge, it starts that journey that we have worked so hard to get to the bar mitzvah, to the b'nai mitzvah time. It starts a conversation that will continue with them with their own words to them to say, a little wake-up call. Remember about the Jewish people.
So how is JNF USA trying to inspire young people specifically to sign the pledge?
So we have a lot of different, we work with 21,000 children between the ages of kindergarten and 8th grade. So everything we do in those activities, we're trying to promote the Jewish Youth Pledge. Sign it, write a note to yourself. Then as they get into high school, we have Alexander Bus High School in Israel, the best semester abroad experience in Israel, not just for day schools, for public schools and others. And so they come to our school for 18 weeks for a great semester abroad experience, but we're teaching them 4,000 years of Jewish history. In that conversation, if we're teaching about history, we want to teach about tomorrow. And in that conversation we're having as part of our curriculum, the Jewish Future Pledge, the Jewish Youth Pledge, where they sign the pledge. They talk about their experiences in Israel. They talk about what they felt about learning 4,000 years of Jewish history, and they start looking and committing towards what they're going to be in the future of the Jewish world. That comes back to them every 5 years. A call, a little a text comes to their phone. It's not a text from nobody. It's a text from themselves, writing to themselves a story that they wrote that says, I commit to the Jewish future.
The subject has come up a lot, specifically at your recent JNF USA National Conference. The Jewish Future Pledge was kind of central in conversation. Why did you decide to do so so prominently feature the pledge at your conference specifically?
Too many times nonprofits tomorrow talk about, first off, oy vey. We don't talk oy vey because the Jewish world is in great shape. And so many times we talk about yesterday. And now you have to know about yesterday. And then they drill into what do we need today? What actually do we need to happen this moment? But that's not what the world is. The world is always about dreams and aspirations and hopes and tomorrow. And the Jewish Future Pledge fits perfectly into that kind of a conversation. And that is the conversation that the Jewish National Fund always has. Dream big, dream what tomorrow is, dream about the Negev and dream about the Galilee, the northern part of Israel. Dream about our connection in the next 100 years to a Jew from Argentina, Austin, Texas, Kiryat Shimona, and Beersheba. Let's build a new relationship. In that, commit to the Jewish future. If you believe in tomorrow, and if you believe in Judaism and our connection to Israel for tomorrow, then commit to it and then work on it.
You're seeing it very much as like progressing into the future, right? What do you feel is the connection between encouraging Jewish youth to commit themselves to a Jewish life, at a younger stage, and encouraging Jewish adults to plan charitable gifts? And why was this so important for JNF to embrace?
Well, look at, when Jewish National Fund is going to be around for the next 150, 200, 300 years, the one thing that I will guarantee you is that if we do not have a Jewish life, if we don't have a Jewish community, then the organization won't be there. So if we don't have a connection to Israel, Jewish life is defined by an individual. It could be a peoplehood, it could be an Orthodox Jew, it could be a person who believes in that Zionist connection and the ancestral soil of the land of Israel. So I'm not going to define your commitment to Judaism. We all come in a very large tent. At Jewish National Fund, we believe that if you're a Zionist, if you believe in the future of Israel and Judaism, I'm not going to define what is that to you, but I'm going to define that you need to be part of making a difference. The Jewish Future Pledge does that as well. For a parent, it is an important part of not just committing for yourself. That would be only half the job. Have the conversation. We have all sorts of conversation with our kids. We even have a conversation about our living will, how we want to die. Do we want to be unplugged or plugged? Do we want to continue? Those are serious conversations. Isn't the serious conversation also a conversation about if you're my daughter, let me tell you how I feel about the future. Let me tell you what I feel about what I've done. And let's have that serious conversation today so that tomorrow the assumptions aren't made and you say, I didn't know what their wishes were.
So how do you feel the Jewish Future Pledge acts as a sort of liaison between Jewish donors and the organizations in need of charitable support? In what ways has JNF benefited from embracing the Jewish Future Pledge surrounding that?
So we're never going to be able to measure the direct, relationship. We're not going to say that John Doe signed the Jewish Future Pledge, and so Jewish National Fund is going to get X amount of money. But if we're good, if we understand who our donors are, and we don't even call them donors, we call them partners. We really relate to our contributors as partners to our organization, part of our organization. We're having those conversations. This is one more conversation that we get to have. Where did your family come from? Why is it that you are so committed to Israel? Why do you like X project or X program that the Jewish National Fund does? And by the way, I understand you signed the Jewish Future Pledge. Tell me about your dreams of tomorrow. How would you like to get your children's children involved? We have, by the way, through our donor advised funds, an entire program that says, come and don't give us a donor advised fund. Let's sit down with your family and talk about how to execute it in the next years ahead. And they appreciate it because they are able to bring us in as sort of a consultant to them. So it's a conversation they want to have. Sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes it allows us to be sort of the one to convene them. We have a generation-to-generation weekends that we've been holding, which talk about ancestral connections and ancestral soil of Israel. So we use it in a whole wide variety of way because our desire is to be here for the next 1,000 years. And the way to do that is start talking to the future generations.
Right. And this is a difficult conversation. It's very empathic, but emotional, I think, is the correct way. So the the Jewish Youth Pledge specifically aims to foster a lifelong Jewish connection in young adults, leveraging an emotional moment as a catalyst. This kind of emotional moment that you're kind of describing. How would you like to see JNF create more emotionally charged moments for our youth to further encourage this kind of commitment pledge?
So we have put in, we started a $1 billion campaign 10 years ago. We're almost at $1 billion early, but we'll celebrate it even past this billion. But we said that 25% of that money had to go for next generation. So the fastest part of our donor demographic, the growth in our campaign, is our 22 to 40-year-olds. We have put a lot of energy and effort into empowering them, into bringing them along. And there, when we have our Alexander Muss High School in Israel, we're bringing them from high school to college, and we're following them every step of the way. The biggest problem that sometimes organizations have, Tamara, is follow-up. You know, you run into people all the time at 40 years of age and say, yeah, I went on Birthright, nobody ever called me. Or I went to this program and nobody ever followed up. So we're using the Jewish Future Pledge, the Jewish Youth Pledge, and the Jewish National Fund platform from birth to the boardroom to make sure that we're touching and we're talking to everybody every step of the way. Now, if at 40 years old, we hope that they know everything about us and the decision to be involved with us is based upon years of engagement. We don't want to hit a 40-year-old and talk to a 40-year-old who will start the conversation and say, I remember I went, but nobody called. So we're using it. It's the greatest opportunity for Jewish organizations to continue the conversation that you invested in whenever it was.
Right, exactly. Keeping the conversation alive and going, so to speak.
Right.
So how do you see both the Jewish Future Pledge and Jewish Youth Pledge fitting into JNF's priorities given the current state of the world in future actions?
I think that the Jewish world is, first off, the most dynamic, greatest Jewish community ever. I'm an optimist about tomorrow, but we're moving. People are moving from the United States to Israel, not to save Israel. You know, the greatest aliyah coming to Israel are North Americans, young ones, who are going through Nefesh B'Nefesh, going to Israel because they just love Israel. Or people are moving from Australia to New York, or from New York to Australia. And so we're a moving community. We're no longer in the boundaries of our city. And that is a different look for our Jewish community. But technology offers us the opportunity to stay in touch. And so we're working very hard at making sure that wherever you go, you're part of the Jewish National Fund family. The Jewish Future Pledge is a wake-up call. You did it at an emotional moment. You went to camp, you went to Alexander Muss High School in Israel, you were on Birthright. And you sat on your phone, Tamar, and you wrote a note to yourself because it was emotional. You know, I want to remember this moment that I was at the Western Wall and I felt my grandfather and my father talking to me. And I commit that to myself that I will constantly be talking and giving others the conversation for the Jewish world. You put down your phone, 5 years goes by. You believed in what you said there, but let's face it, life happens. And you get a text, it's a little wake-up call. And all of a sudden, you're reading your own text. And it's sort of that little wake-up call to you that say, did I do enough? Those words in which I gave there, did it? And my assumption will be that all of us should continue working on those words that we said to each other, that we said to our parents and to our grandparents, that we said at our B'nai Mitzvah, that we said at all the emotional times because we're leaders and people want to be led. And if I get that wake-up call in 5 years and then another 5 years, another 5 years, that's okay. Because that wake-up call will say to me, give me breath in my chest and say, go forward. I'm a leader and I need to create an opportunity for the Jewish world for tomorrow.
It's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Russell, for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.